7 armed outlaws, 1 sheriff, and a gunfight so fierce that the echoes were said to linger in the canyon for decades. On a cold Arizona night in 1887, the small town of Red Canyon found itself trapped between fear and survival. What happened next would become one of the most talked about gun battles in Wild West history. The last stand at Red Canyon. The sun was setting over the dusty hills of Arizona in 1887. The small town of Red Canyon had only one street, a few wooden buildings, and a population of less than 200. Most people were ranchers, miners, or shopkeepers. Life was hard, but it was peaceful, until the Black Vulture Gang arrived. The gang was led by a ruthless outlaw named Jack Black Vulture Morgan. He and his 6 men had robbed banks across the Southwest and left a trail of fear wherever they went. When they rode into Red Canyon, everyone knew trouble had arrived. Sheriff Thomas Reed was the only lawman in town. A former Civil War soldier, Reed was respected for his courage and fairness. He stood nearly 6 feet tall, with gray eyes and a weathered face that told stories of battles long past. One afternoon, the gang stormed the town bank. Within minutes, they had stolen thousands of dollars and taken several townspeople hostage. Jack Morgan laughed as he stepped out of the bank. "Nobody follows us, or these folks don't make it home." The townspeople watched helplessly as the gang rode away toward the rocky cliffs north of the town. Sheriff Reed knew he couldn't let them escape. Gathering a small posse of 4 volunteers, he set off in pursuit. The trail led deep into Red Canyon, a maze of narrow passages and towering red rock formations. As darkness approached, the posse spotted the gang's camp near an abandoned silver mine. "We wait until dawn," whispered one volunteer, but Reed shook his head. "If we wait, they'll move before sunrise." The sheriff carefully approached the camp. Unfortunately, one of the gang's horses sensed danger and began to whinny loudly. "Ambush!" shouted one outlaw. Gunfire erupted instantly. Bullets slammed into rocks as both sides scrambled for cover. The peaceful canyon echoed with the sound of revolvers and rifles. One outlaw rushed forward, firing wildly. The sheriff took careful aim and shot the man's weapon from his hand. The outlaw surrendered immediately. The battle intensified. 2 gang members climbed onto a ridge overlooking the sheriff's position. From above, they had a clear advantage. "Look out!" yelled a volunteer. A bullet shattered the rock inches from the sheriff's face. The sheriff quickly moved between boulders and fired twice. One outlaw dropped his rifle and fled. The second disappeared into the darkness. Meanwhile, Jack Morgan and his remaining men were trying to reach the abandoned mine. They planned to escape through an old tunnel known only to local miners. Reed realized their plan. "They're heading for the mine," he shouted. The posse rushed after them. The entrance to the mine stood beneath a towering cliff. Moonlight illuminated the weathered wooden supports surrounding the opening. As Reed approached, a gunshot rang out. A bullet struck his hat and sent it flying. Jack Morgan stepped from behind a wagon. "You're persistent, Sheriff," he said with a grin. "And you're finished, Jack." For a moment, neither man moved. The entire canyon seemed silent. Then both reached for their revolvers. The shots echoed almost simultaneously. Morgan's bullet struck the sheriff's shoulder. Reed's shot hit Morgan squarely in the chest. The outlaw staggered backward and collapsed onto the dusty ground. Seeing their leader fall, the remaining gang members threw down their weapons and surrendered. The fight was over. The hostages were rescued unharmed, and the stolen money was recovered from saddlebags near the mine entrance. Sheriff Reed's wound was serious, but not fatal. After several weeks of recovery, he returned to duty. News of the gunfight spread throughout Arizona and beyond. Newspapers called it the Battle of Red Canyon. Some stories exaggerated the events, claiming hundreds of bullets were fired and dozens of outlaws were involved. But the people of Red Canyon knew the truth. They remembered the courage of a sheriff who risked everything to protect his town.
Years later, when travelers passed through Red Canyon, they often stopped to hear the story. Older residents would point toward the distant cliffs and tell visitors about the night gunfire echoed through the canyon, and a small town stood against fear. Sheriff Thomas Reed never considered himself a hero. He would say, "I was just doing my job." Yet for the people of Red Canyon, he became a legend whose bravery ensured that justice, not fear, ruled the frontier. And even today, local stories claim that, on quiet desert nights, the winds blowing through Red Canyon still carry echoes of that famous gunfight long ago.